Welcome to Forward with Truth podcast. I have here with me my good friend, Pastor Brian Madden, and today, and we're very privileged to have him. Pastor Madden is the pastor of Maghaberry Elim Church, and he is also the head of Teen Challenge in Northern Ireland. Teen Challenge is an international Christian organisation. It's dedicated to helping individuals break free from life-controlling addictions through the power of the gospel. In Northern Ireland, under Pastor Madden's leadership, Teen Challenge has become a beacon of hope, offering practical support, community outreach, and the message of freedom in Christ to those who are struggling with addiction, despair, and sin. Pastor Madden's heart for ministry is unwavering. Over the years, he's reached out to people across both city streets and rural towns, sharing the gospel with a passionate drive to see lives transformed by the love of Christ and the power of Christ. Known for his deep conviction and compassion, he believes that no one is beyond God's redemptive power and works tirelessly to guide those he encounters towards healing and wholeness in Jesus and away from sin. Pastor Madden has a single focus: to see souls won for Christ, live radically changed, and a revival that touches every corner of Northern Ireland, the Republic, the United Kingdom, and the world. Today we're blessed to hear from a man whose life mission is to bring the hope of the gospel to those who need it most in some of the darkest situations and areas. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Nathan. Great to be here.
It is. Well, look, Pastor Madden, we'll just start with, could you tell us what a typical day looks like for you?
Well, a typical day for me starts off very early in the morning, of course, with God, as we all do. And then from about 9 o'clock, when I take my phone back off silent, I have it on silent mode. These wonderful iPhones, you can put on silent mode in a way that if your family needs an emergency, it still rings, but anyone else it doesn't. So from about 9 o'clock, I could probably have already 5 or 6 missed calls. And that Teen Challenge phone in particular, the church phone's pretty quiet, but the Teen Challenge phone, of 2 mobile phones, it would ring most of the day from people who are trapped in addiction. Maybe people are waiting on dates to go into one of our centres, or maybe doctors phoning me, hospitals phoning me, police, probation, or something like that. So every day is really different. Yeah,
and you just never know what another phone call's going to take.
You could never second guess what's going to happen next. You couldn't.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'm going to ask you a wee question. Now, if I was to ask you out of a character in the Bible, and if there was just one character in the Bible that you would meet with outside Jesus, who would that be? And why?
I would like to meet with Elisha, and the reason being is that when Elijah put the mantle on him, he was willing to take on Elijah's role plus. And when you look at the role of Elijah and what Elijah had actually achieved throughout his life, it's not the type of role that you would want to follow after. To even accomplish what Elijah accomplished would have been a grandeur, but the fact that he'd been promised a double portion, they'd asked for a double portion, but promised a double portion, to have the drive and the faith to actually believe that would happen, it totally amazes me, because we live in a day where you get good leaders in churches that pass away, and they're always looking for someone to come after them and just maybe reach the same level. But there's very few that come after him and really take it to double the level. So that Elisha fascinates me. What was in the man that caused him to believe that it could be done?
Yeah, I mean, such faith.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we often, as Christians, sort of, our biggest limit is that we don't believe God. 100%.
I'm at the stage, what I'm involved in, Nathan, and I mean this, I believe God for anything. I have to believe God for anything, because I can't physically do what I'm doing without God. I just can't, not possible.
Because people don't want to change. And the biggest problem you have is people are their own worst enemy in this job, aren't they? Yeah. And in a sense, they won't want to change unless there's some power or some person who we know who that is, that's Jesus, from out of their life going to change them.
Yeah, and that's the honest truth, because Teen Challenge doesn't change people. Our centres are Christian centres. It's Jesus Christ that sets people free.
Yeah.
If you go into our centre and you don't find Jesus, then there's a very strong likelihood you could leave and go back into the depths of addiction again. The Bible says, "He who the Son sets free is free indeed." It doesn't say, "He who Teen Challenge sets free is free indeed."
No.
So we're well aware of that, and that's why Jesus Christ is the forefront of our ministry. That's it. It's based on the gospel.
Yeah. And I suppose talking about that issue of the gospel then, Brian, let's start off with your story. Can you share how you came to know Christ and how your journey of faith has shaped your life?
Well, it's fascinating because I never really, I grew up in Tigers Bay in North Belfast, and I was a bit of a bad lad, in as much as my dad was an alcoholic. He was in the UDA. My mum worked in a bar. She was worked behind the bar serving the drink. So growing up as a young person in Tigers Bay, which was run by the UDA stroke UVF, very sectarian, anti-Catholic, no surrender, kick the Pope type mentality. And through primary school, I started off I went to Cliftonville Primary School first of all, but we were burnt out at the Troubles, and we were put out of our flat in the top of Duncarn Gardens at the Troubles. So as a young
by paramilitaries,
by Provision IRA, Provision IRA at that time, and that was my first image. One of the most traumatized images I had was in the Duncarn Gardens. When we came out of those flats, there was big houses on the left, and back then, it's not the same now. If you got a hole in your jeans, you didn't get a new pair of jeans, you had to go and get them patched. And these little ladies all had sewing machines, so very often my mum would have sent me down to get them to stitch up the holes in the jeans, and they were always very nice to me and always giving me sweets and stuff. But the day when the co-op removals, people might remember co-op removals came to remove us, a guy called Thomas Turner. When we were putting all our furniture in, these same women were calling us vile names, and I couldn't grasp that. These same women that were stitching my clothes and giving me sweets now seemed, at the blink of an eye, to spiral hatred towards us, and that didn't help me as a young person, and so I grew up with that memory, and I thought, well, if they hate me, I'm going to hate them. It's. I never, I didn't do well at school. When I went to Curry Primary School in Tigers Bay, I wasn't stupid at brains. I just didn't like school. I went through school, survived school, went into secondary school, and then my life spiraled out of control. I got involved in drink and drugs because I found that I could come home drunk, and my mum and dad didn't know because they were drunk, so they couldn't tell. My mum was always trying to better me. My friends all wanted me in Cooler Secondary School, but my mum forced me to go to the boys' model. I didn't want to go, but I went to the boys' model, and then after about 2 months I was expelled for assault. I never told my mum and dad, so what I done was every morning I put the boys' model uniform on as if I was going to school, but I was going over the park because I didn't want to tell them I'd been expelled.
Yeah.
And that went on for about a month until the truant officer came then and told him I'd been expelled. And then my dad, I can say this now without him getting arrested, beat the living daylights out of me with a bat for not going to school. And my mum wasn't pleased with me, so I went to Mount Collier, but things spiraled really, really badly then. I just started drinking more than I did at the weekends. Sometimes I was drinking when I was going to school, and I was getting hungover at 13 and 14 years of age. I'd met a girl called Martine Doherty, whose brother was Lee Doherty and played for Linfield, and I met her and we started to go out together. Her mum and dad were from a decent family, and they weren't too fond of me, and to be honest, they didn't want Martine going with me, and I don't blame them for that. But I started to get in a lot of trouble. Mostly with paramilitaries. I hated paramilitaries. My dad was a paramilitary. So was my brother. My other brother, an older brother, who was very smart, went to Royal Belfast Academical Institution. He sort of stayed out of it and just went to Queen's and stuff. But what I was doing, I was, through my own fault, I was breaking into building sites and getting tools to sell it to the travellers down at Brome Street. And they give me money, and they got me money for drinking drugs. And because the paramilitary sort of looked after, they were the security.
Right. They
would have beat me and thumped me, and then the more they beat me and thumped me, then the more I hated them. I just didn't like them. I never became a paramilitary. I didn't want to become a paramilitary, and probably one of the greatest things that saved me was the phase of skinheads and mods. I became a skinhead, so we had our own group, but paramilitaries then didn't like us. So I got through, my whole early life was all to do with hatred and
anger.
There was no sort of real joyous times, but there was no liberty or freedom or anything. It was just dictatorship, how you behaved. And what happened to me was my mum got saved, my dad got saved, and that blew me away. I'm not sure where I believed in God. Then my sister got saved. I wrecked a house one time, and my mum asked me to go to church because I was so anti-God. I was a member of the National Front. I was anti-black, anti-anything. If you're not British and white, get the boat and get back out of here. I was indoctrinated with these. I was selling the Bulldog magazine at Linfield football matches, and I thought I was doing right. This is a way of life that I am enjoying. And when my mum and dad get saved, I told them, don't be giving me any of this Jesus stuff. I don't want to know it. But my life just continually spiraled to such an extent that I used to go to bed at night with my clothes on. And the reason I went to bed with my clothes on is because when the RUC came to arrest you, they took you whatever way they found you. So I thought it was a good idea to be found with your clothes on when they're coming to get you, because they just threw you into the cell the way you were.
Yeah.
So I went to bed with my clothes on, and I was left with my boots or slippers at the side of the bed. And then when I heard the front door coming in, I knew they were coming for me. I had to get up and put the boots on, put my hands behind my head. And then what happened was my mum had got cancer, and she was very ill with it, and she was getting chemotherapy. And one night, the same thing happened. The police came for me. I got up, put my hands behind the bed, was coming down the stairs, and the police held me at the bottom of the stairs. And my mum came out and got down on her knees, and the police held me looking at her. And she cried out and says, "Please, Lord Jesus, save our Brian." And I felt so ashamed, so unworthy. So I don't know what it was. And I was saying, "Mum, please go into bed." And then I was blaming the police and causing pain to my mother, because you're always looking to blame someone else for your wrongs. I done it because A, B, C, D. I wasn't man enough to admit it was me, and I was blaming the police. And they arrested me, and it rung in my head, my mum, but it didn't change me. You know, I left school. I remember leaving school. I always tell people, you know, words are profound. They can define people. Be careful what you say to people. Because I remember my mum at the age of 15 taking me to see a psychiatrist on the Antrim Road due to the fact that I was trying to kill myself, and I was taking drugs, and I was stealing people's tablets, and just I was hearing voices, I was seeing things, everything. And she took me to see this psychiatrist in the Antrim Road, right at the bottom of Cliftonville Road. And we walked up the stairs, and I sat down with this guy, and he started to show me wee pictures of apples and oranges and bananas, and I thought the guy's head was gone. He was really causing anger to rise up within me. And he kept trying to talk to me, but I wouldn't respond to him. And he says to me, "Brian, will you tell me how you feel?" And I looked out the window, and there was a wee blue Volkswagen Beetle sitting, and I asked him, was it his car? And he says, yes. And I said to him, "I'll tell you how I feel. I'm going down and I'm going to burn that." And he looked at my mum, and he said to my mum, "Would he do that?" And my mum was crying. I never felt any pain, my mum crying. That's how bad I was. Evil. It was just evil. I know that now. I didn't know then. But I remember that guy saying, and looking at me and looking at my mum and saying, "There's nothing can be done for him." Now, I bought into that. I believed that. I'd felt that way anyway. Yeah. But he's now confirmed it. So I come out and I go off the rails, because there's nothing can be done for me. I'd start to cut my wrists, I tried to hang myself, I tried to kill myself, because what's the point of me existing after this top guy has told me there's nothing can be done? I left school about 4 months after that. I was left school early, and Robert Shanks was our PE teacher, and he said to me when I was leaving, "See you, Brian Madden, you're a waste of space. You will never ever achieve anything in life." So the psychiatrist had said this, now that the teacher had said that, and that became the shaping of my life. It really did.
Those two phrases shaped you?
So much so I'm 57 and I still remember them.
Yeah.
I forgot every other phrase in my life,
yeah.
but I remember. It's amazing that how you can remember the negative stuff that people speak over you. And I bought into them. It was a devil's lies, and I bought into them. But if you had told me back then it was a devil's lies, I'd have laughed at you. Mm-hmm. You know, people used to come when we took glue and drunk up the Grove Park. Christians used to come, lovely people, and give me tracts, and I'd have crumbled them up and threw them at the ground. I had just no time for this. I was bound and gripped in addiction and in a dark hole, and I couldn't see any way out. If the psychiatrist can't get me out, there's nobody getting me out. And if the teacher says that I can't achieve nothing, there's nobody can do anything for me. I'm not sure whether I even believed there was a God, to be honest with you. It's hard to believe there is a God when you're in a real dark pit where I actually was. But my girlfriend sort of stuck by me. I remember that in Portadown, her taking us down to the cars and on the Maghaberry Road. But I got involved in all that, even though I wasn't the paramilitary, because it gave me sort of something to do, and it caused me to survive. But then I think what the biggest thing that happened to me was I got so many court cases, and this is a flip change in my life. I got a summons to go to the Crumlin Road High Court, which is a wrecked building at the moment, and I had 48 charges.
And it's just facing the prison for those?
Just facing the Crumlin Road prison, yeah. It was in there, and I had 48 charges, and I was going with Martine at the time, and who's now my wife, by the way. She's stuck by me, God bless her. And I stood up in the dock with the RUC, and I had a wee bag, because they told me I was 17 and they told me I was going away for 2 to 3 years. I didn't really care, that's the honest truth, because I was going to Crumlin Road, and the UDA would have claimed me because my dad was in the UDA, so I was going to a holiday. I had in my head I was going away for a 2-year holiday, that's the honest truth. The only concern was where was I going to get my drug and my drinks. That was the biggest concern I had. Prison didn't concern me, it didn't fear me. But I remember the judge was sitting away high up, you know, over to the left, and I was sort of here and he was over there. And I remember them reading my charges out, and all of a sudden this judge looked down at me, and he sort of put his glasses down, and he says to me, "I see something in you." And I thought, what on earth is he talking about? He says, "There's something in you, young man, and I'm going to give you a chance to find out what it is." Now, I don't know where he was a Christian. I do not know. And I thought, what is he talking about? What is he doing here? So they ended up giving me a sentence, a 2-year sentence, suspended for 3 years, and about 100 hours community service and a year's probation for these 48 charges. And the RUC were fuming. But I came out of that court thinking, what did he say in me? And I remember going home and looking in the mirror and looking at myself, and what on earth? But it was the first time anyone had spoken any way positive words towards me. Because my mum and dad were always saying to me, "You're no good, you're a waste of space." My brother was the star. Yeah. He was going to be a Presbyterian minister. He was the top guy. I was the devil incarnate. So everybody was on my case, probably justifiably. But when even when it's justifiable, you don't feel it's justifiably. And I went home thinking, what on earth did he say in me? And then I went out that night and got drunk to celebrate. And I got into trouble, and I was arrested. And the guy who arrested me was a guy called Sergeant Billy Lemon, who was a sergeant in York Road, who'd arrested me, oh my good Lord, I don't know how many times. He arrested me there was a fight, brought me down to York Road police station and put me in a cell for about an hour, brought me out and come up and said, Brian, you know something, son? If I charge you, you're going to die for 2 years. You know that, don't you? I says, yeah. He says, what were you thinking of? I says, I don't know, Bill. I just went out to celebrate and the fight started. And he looked at me and he says to me, I don't know why I'm doing this, son. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a chance. Go home and go to bed. And I thought, what is going on here? What is going on? So the judge, now this guy, who would arrest me at a heartbeat and charge me at a heartbeat, is showing me a wee bit of mercy and grace that it caused me. I never had a breakdown over it. No one had ever treated me like that. I couldn't understand what was going on. So I said to Martine about it, and she says, maybe it's God speaking to you. I says, don't be silly, for goodness sake. This is. And I was trying to, so I couldn't sleep. I was seeing all these words, people, and I was drinking and taking stuff to try and mask it all out. I didn't want to face God. I didn't want to face who I was. So I'm trying to block it all out the best I could, hoping it will go away. But my mum was praying for me. My dad's praying for me. When God's out to get you and you're trying to, it's not an easy. It's a battle you're not going to win. I didn't know that, and every year we had went down to see a friend of mine called Hugh Knocker, who's no longer with us, and he was an ex-UVF man. He was a big hitter in UVF in Tigers Bay. He's about 25 years older than me, but we became good friends. He was a Christian, but he'd sort of backslid and he'd stepped away from God. He left UVF, became a Christian, was going to a Brethren Hall in Carrick, but he hadn't been for years. But through a hobby I have, an amateur radio, he was an amateur radio, we became friends. And every Christmas I went down to, I went down because he got expensive wine, £300 bottles of wine. And I went down every Christmas with Martine and his wife Sylvia, and would have had a couple of glasses of wine and chatted. But one year I didn't get down, and it was January, and I said to Martine, "Should we go down now?" I told him we'll be down in January. Went down on the 18th of January, it's 1987. We're in his house, he brings out this lovely wine, we're having the wine, talking in general, and then he looked at me and he said to me, "Brian, I'm worried about you." And I looked at him and said, "Well, what do you mean, Hugh, you're worried about me?" He says, "I'm really worried about you." He says, "Why?" He says, "Look, the UVF have tried to kill you." I says, "They did. They put a gun to my head, pulled the trigger, I don't know what happened, where it was a bullet in it or not. Well, obviously there was no bullet in it, it didn't work, or if there was, it didn't work." And he says, "They're looking for you, the UDA's looking for you, and the IRA's looking for you," which was true. The IRA were looking for me because they used to fly a huge big tricolour in Churchill House, and I took it down.
Yeah.
And that was punishable by death back then. And we put it in the bonfire in Tigers Bay and burnt it. And so they were all looking at me, but it wasn't something that I was concerned about. And then he said to me, the words he used was, he said to me, "You need to be lucky all the time. They need to be only lucky once." I don't believe in luck now, but then I probably would have. I says, "I know that, Hugh." I says, "And what are you suggesting? What's the answer? Are you flying me out to Bahamas, or what's going on?" And he looked at me and he said to me, "You need Jesus." And I burst out laughing. I just, come on, you're having too much wine here, you know. I was 19. And he says, "No, I'm serious, you need Jesus." So, and he annoyed me. I says, "I didn't come down here to talk about this. I'm going home." I took a bottle of wine with me, I was going home but I said to Martine, "Come on, we're going home." And he says, "Don't be going." I says, "No, I don't want to talk. I didn't come here to talk religion. I'm not here for that." So I left an angry young man. My life was in a mess. I'd been beaten umpteen time by paramilitaries. I lost count of many times the paramilitaries had beat me. And whether the UVF tried to kill me or not, I don't know. But they were looking for me.
There was certainly a threat there, anyway.
Oh, it was a massive threat. There was a massive threat on me. I wasn't allowed in Tigers Bay, I wasn't allowed in certain areas, but I was still getting in. I think it's more the fact that I was defying them. And it made the threat worse. And some of these guys were bad guys back then, you know, they'd have killed me. That wouldn't have cost them a thought. But I was coming home in Martine's car, my girlfriend at the time, and I got onto the motorway. And all I can say, you know, my mind was messed, so broken and messed and dark, and I just remember all of a sudden, all I can say is that there was a sign up that said 40 mile an hour. It's the 18th of January, and it was a windy night, and I hears this voice as clear as I could possibly hear it. If this car goes off the road, you're going to hell. I no one had ever told me I was going to hell, but that, for some reason, that struck me with fear. Nothing else in life had frightened me, but this frightened me. This is on the motorway, and I'm rigid with fear, and then all of a sudden, which I would say was within milliseconds, my whole life flashed before me. Everything. All the negatives, all the stuff I'd done, everything flashed before me. And then it stopped. And I thought, it stopped? Is there no future? And then I felt this same voice saying to me, where will you be in 5 years? And I couldn't answer that. That frightened me too. Mm-hmm. So within this period of time, Martine's driving, this is all happening in my mind. I find myself crying out to God. I realised there and then that the only hope that I have for my life is God. I don't, because I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing. I've no job, I've no hope, I've no future, I've nothing. People are trying to kill me. And I just prayed a prayer to God and said, God, please forgive me and help me. But if you're real, I can't stop taking these drugs. I can't stop drinking alcohol. You're going to need to help me do this. Mm-hmm. And all I can say, Nathan, is that there and then I felt this. It was like a wave of peace just coming right through me. It was just a wave of peace come right through me. And Martine was dropping me off, and I turned to her and I said, Martine, I've just got saved.
And you were at that stage someone who didn't believe in God, didn't want God in it. No. But something supernatural was work.
I can really put it down to the prayers of my family and other people. I found out later there was other people praying for me, but I didn't find out till after I was saved.
Yes. Yeah.
So I can only put it down to the prayers of God's people, because I only ever went to church once. Yeah. I wasn't interested. It's the last place I wanted to go. No. The last time I was at church, I took the lid off the roof.
Can I ask you a wee question? Was your friend who was in the UVF, was he a Christian at that time?
No, he was backslid.
So he wasn't a Christian?
No.
And he's saying, you need Jesus?
Yeah, that's why I was angry. Yeah. You have a cheek telling me, because he wasn't living a Christian life. Wow. But he lit the flame.
So at this point in time then, you've got saved. Then, what difference did that make? So what did you do next?
Well, the first thing happened to me. Martine drove off and left me. She was in shock. And I went into the house, and my mum was sitting on the settee, and I said to my mum, I've got something I need to tell you. My mum started to cry. And right there and then I realised for the first time that I'd been hurting my mum. Yeah. So, and I knew I was saved, because I never felt any emotion before. Yeah. But now I feel, oh my God, what have I done in that?
Your whole nature's
changed.
Yeah.
Everything's changed. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what have I done? I said, Mum, I'm sorry, it's not bad. I'm saved, I'm a Christian. She went, what? She couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. I says, I've asked Jesus to save me in the car. Oh my God. And then my dad run in, what happened? I says, I'm a Christian now. And he run to tell his friends. He was in shock. He couldn't believe it. But I just felt, I felt different. It wasn't the same Brian Madden. I just knew. And I went round my whole house, and had alcohol and patching and drugs planted all around the house. And I didn't realise I had much of it when I went and looked for it all, and I poured it all down the sink and crumpled all tablets up and my mum and dad were watching me, and I got my cigarettes and I crumpled them all up and threw it all away, everything. And I said to them...
and surely at that point they knew, because you wouldn't have done that otherwise.
They were just... I think they were contemplating, has he get saved, or is he on drugs, is he high or something, you know, because they were watching to see what I was doing. But I remember, I said to them, like, I'm going to go up to bed, I'm tired, because I felt really tired. I hadn't been sleeping for months, possibly years. And my dad says, that's remarkable, so I'm going to a prayer meeting in the morning. I said, I'll go with you. What time's it at? He says, it's 6 o'clock. I says, no problem, I'll go with you. And the two of them, my mum and dad's looking at me, you know. So I went up to bed, and I sat, the wee alarm clock beside the bed, one of the old alarm clocks. I set it for 5:30, I'll get up half an hour early. Mm-hmm. Went to bed and slept like a baby. Never woke till the alarm clock went. First night's sleep I've had in years. Get up, went to the prayer meeting with my dad, and I go into the prayer meeting. I'm sitting in a wee room, something like this, and I sit down and look over in the corner, and there's damage done to the ceiling and damage done to the wall, and it's the first prayer meeting I'm in, the best and the worst prayer meeting in my life, because the damage is damage I caused. I took the lid off the roof, and I'm now in the first ever prayer meeting of the room I damaged, and I'm thinking, God, what are you doing to me? Why are you punishing me? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, I feel really bad.
Yeah.
And at the end of the meeting, there was a guy called the Reverend Sam Conkey. He was the Presbyterian minister of his Newtown Presbyterian Church. I came out into the hall and I says, Reverend Conkey, I need to talk to you. He says, what is it, Brian? I says, the damage in there to your wall and your roof, that was me. I need to repay you. And I remember him looking at me, because I used to think these people, sometimes when I was coming home after a night out on a Sunday morning when they were all going to church. Yeah. And they all were going in the doors looking down at me, and I thought they were looking down at me with a judgmental nature. How wrong I was. And he looked at me and he said to me, I know it was you. And I looked at him and thought, what do you mean you know it was me? He says, well, I saw you. I says, why did you not get the police? He says, well, I thought I would just pray and Jesus got you, which is much better. And I thought, I broke down, honestly broke down. I thought, I want to be like that man. Yeah. Here's a man that has shown mercy to a terrible, evil person like me. I deserve to be jailed for that or whatever. But he showed me mercy and compassion, and I thought, that's the type of Jesus I want to know. I really. So I went back and told my mum, and my mum was fuming because she went to the church. Did you do that? We have been trying to raise money for that. I says, well, he knew it was me, you know. So I went there, and then he was brilliant, such a godly man, and he sort of, Martine got saved about an hour after me. She went to the Elim, and he came to me and said to me, Brian, why don't you go with your girlfriend to the Elim? He says, I don't want to lose you, but there's something in your life, I see something in you, and I think it'll be best served going there. And I said to him, are you trying to get rid of me because I took a lid of the roof? And he started to laugh. He says, no, but he's such a godly man, that wasn't what it was. So I went there and I started going to the Elim Church, and of course my mum died shortly after me and Martine got married. We got married. I had to ask her dad for her hand in marriage, and he said to me, if it came 2 or 3 years ago, to chase you, but there's been such a change in your life. I was arrested 5 times, and the first week I was saved. 5 times, the police. They all heard I'd become a Christian, and they all arrested me to see if I was going to inform on everybody and Tigers Bay and everything else. The first time they arrested me, when I was coming back out and I was getting my shoelaces, they were all singing Let's All Gather at the River to me. But I didn't care.
The police?
Police, yeah. Not York Road Police. I didn't care. I was in a different planet. I was saved. I just did not care. I said, guys, I'm saved. Just can laugh at me. And you know what I found? I found actually remarkable. So after the prayer meeting, when I came back from the prayer meeting, my mum said the police had been here looking for me. and I took my Bible with me. I had a wee small Bible. I'd never read a Bible, but I took my Bible with me. And I waited till 9 o'clock because I knew if I went down to her, they'd just put you in the cell till 9 o'clock. So I went down about 9:10, and they took me in the cell. So I took my shoelaces and my shoes off and my belts off, but I couldn't take my Bible, they're not allowed. So I kept the Bible. And I was in the cell reading the Bible, and I read that Paul and Silas were in a prison cell singing, and I didn't know anything but Jesus loves me, so I just sat and sung Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And one of the cops came down and says, right, get you out of here, go on, you're away, they shouldn't have arrested you. Go, you can't sing anyway, come on, because they can hear me. But so 5 times in a week they arrested me, and then the bizarrest thing is the way my whole life was transformed. That, you know, one time Martine was teaching me to drive. We're down Crew Street. Every time I was out in her car, the police pulled us in because I may have had something in it, or something stolen, or drugs. So she become the victim when she wasn't a victim. She was never involved in anything like that.
Yeah.
But when the cops seen me in the car, they pulled her car and they would have stripped it down and searched me and everything like that. So when we were on Crew Street, the Land Rover came up behind us. And I'd been a Christian about a year, and I thought, dear, here we go again. They're back to their same old. What had happened was I got a puncture in my car, and I had to stop. And I got out, and I knew them. Bush and Mark Rogan. He says, "You all right, Brian?" I says, "Martine's teaching me to drive here, but I think I've got a puncture." And the big guy says to me, "Where's your spare tire?" I mean, it's in the boot. And they changed my puncture.
What?
All these guys that used to arrest me and beat the living daylights out of me, and I'm standing smiling, thinking, "This is crazy." You know, they're doing all that. And then I went on.
As before, they probably would have searched your car.
Oh, they'd stripped the car down. They would have stripped the car down. But the change Christ had made in my life, they could obviously see it.
Yeah, well, they weren't interfacing with you as much.
No, they weren't. No,
you probably reduced their workload a bit too.
Yeah, and that's what it was, and that's what happened, because I got a job in a Dare lifts when I should never have got it. I started to learn to be a lift engineer.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we were putting a lift in Wheelworths. It was up in where Kennedy Centre is. Used to be a Wheelworths in there, or a Wellworths they called it. And we were putting a lift in, and I was coming down Kennedy Way, and there was a road check, the army. But when the army did a road check, there was always a police constable, but it was Billy Lemon, this sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
Was doing the road check, and he stopped me, and he said, "Brian Madden." I says, "What about you, Billy?" "Hold on a minute." So he called all the soldiers over, and he said, "See this guy here? Mad, crazy, no hope. Tell him what happened to you." So I'm sharing my testimony to these soldiers, and all the cars are beeping behind because it's caused a traffic jam. And I says to Billy, "You're not let me go here because of traffic. This is more important. These guys need to hear this, you know."
Was Mr. Lemon, was he a Christian?
No, he never said to me he was a Christian, but he wanted them to. He couldn't believe the change in me. He's still alive. I was talking to a guy the other week, says he lives in Bangor. I'd love to meet him, but he couldn't believe the change that had taken place in my life. You know, no one had given me a hope. Like that psychiatrist said there was no hope. Well, no medical hope, but he didn't know about the power of Jesus. I would love to meet that psychiatrist today. I really would. Yeah. And tell him. You know, so God took me through all of that, and me and Martine got married with kids, and my mum died, and then Martine's mum and dad died. So we went through trials and tribulations, but we always had Christ in the middle of it, which makes a difference. There's no longer drugs needed. There was no longer, like, I haven't had a drug, a cigarette, or drink in 37 years, and I don't want to have any. No. I've got Jesus now. I don't need them. And I remember, you know, when I got my job and everything that I got in life, I realised, I was wise enough to realise that I did not achieve anything in life. Everything I had in life was God-given. Yeah. And people used to come and say to me, because I started off street preaching from after a week I was saved. Yeah. And I was going around churches giving my testimony, and then the pastor had me preaching a wee bit, and I was developing myself and God, and I was fearless when it came to the gospel. when you've been radically saved, you sort of become radical in your presentation. Sometimes it's wise, sometimes it's unwise.
Yeah.
But I wanted everybody to be saved. I wanted everyone to experience what I'd experienced. So I was stopping people and going to see people and telling people what had happened to me. And I moved on and got, after I worked for others, I moved into the Otis Elevator Company and became the Northern Ireland manager for Otis Elevator Company. And I used to sit behind the desk thinking, how is this even possible? This is crazy. Company car, big pay every year, company credit card, free fuel, free phone, looking after 35 guys. Me, an absolute nutcase, looking after the whole swing around by God. And when it finished at about a year after that, they under Otis were the best company I'd ever worked for in my life. They were an absolute... I loved going to work.
Yeah.
There's not many people could say that, but I loved going to work. But I always prayed to God, and I always told God that if He ever wanted me to give anything up, I've nothing to give up because it's His anyway. I'm giving up. I'll do anything for Him. Mm-hmm. Dangerous prayer to pray, because you never think God's going to ask you to do it.
No.
But I'm standing one day working at a lift, there's a fault in the lift, and the same voice speaks to me. What are you doing here? And I knew that God didn't want me to stay in that job. And I cried, because the honest truth is I didn't want to leave the job. Mm-hmm. I loved it. Why would you want to leave anything that you loved? And I remember phoning my wife, Martine, and saying, I need to leave this job. What are you talking about? God's calling me out. So from that process, I became a minister. The journey's longer, but I became a minister. And left Otis with their blessing. They bought me a Bible, tried to get me to stay, offered me more money. They brought guys over from England. When you're leaving, you see, to make sure you're not leaving with a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
It's all about name and prestige. And they offered me an extra 10,000 a year, and I told them I was leaving for £25,000 less a year.
Yeah.
So I wasn't into the ministry for money. I was losing 25 grand. I was losing a company car. I was losing a company credit card. I was losing a company phone. But I didn't lose anything. God had given me all of that to give me a wee bit of enjoyment before launching me into the ministry. And for the first year, my daughters used to beg me to go back to Otis because all the money was cut back, everything. You've got to trim your income to suit your budget. You can't go your holidays to America anymore. You know, you'd be fortunate if you get to Spain. It might be Malay or Bangor, but we're just going to have to. And God took me on a journey. He took me on a journey in ministry. I was in ministry in North Belfast. I was involved in some stuff that, my goodness, there's people have told me to write books and I couldn't write a book. I'd have to leave the country. I was involved in situations with machine guns on the table where people were going to shoot people and have stopped them. I was involved in paramilitary peace meetings, everything, total. You start naming people in books and they're all going to get raps at the door, whatever the case may be, whether it was UVF, UDA, IRA. These people now who wanted to kill me now respected me and listened to me and followed after what I asked them to do to stop them hitting people or killing people or beating people or kneecapping people. They used to hate seeing me coming to their door. And one of the brigadiers, Jimbo Simpson, who's now no longer with us, hated me coming to the door. I led him to Jesus before he died. I actually led him to the Lord and done his funeral. And another guy, Ricky, he was the same. I led him to Jesus. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I'm now 57, and over the last 4 years I've got involved in Teen Challenge. I'm now doing more for Jesus at 57 than I did when I was 20, which is crazy. We're reaching people racked in addiction. Addiction in Northern Ireland is off the scales, Nathan, off the scales.
So, yeah, I think maybe moving on to that. Before we do, we'll get there.
Right,
we'll get there. But can you tell us about, what does Teen Challenge do, And and I know we sort of talked about it at the start, but how does it impact lives in Northern Ireland? What do you see as the
look, the thing about Teen Challenge is that first and foremost, Teen Challenge is a Christian organisation.
Yeah.
It started over 58 years ago in the Bronx in New York. And Pastor David Wilkerson was the guy. Times Square Church, New York. He's now in glory also. They're in about 118 countries in the world now.
Yeah.
So it's reaching people in the gutter. That's what it is. The people that many people walk past in the street or land, begging for money, and some people turn their nose up and walk on. We sit down with those people. That's the people we love and show mercy and care. Mm-hmm. And just let them know there's a hope, and the hope is Jesus. Our motto is hope within reach. So it's Jesus is within reach. Jesus is within reach of every individual. So we have a drop-in in Chapel Lane called Hope Chapel Lane, where we partner with Crown Jesus Ministries, who are a marvellous evangelistic team led by Mitch and his lovely wife Amanda. And we work out of there, and we have seen lives, insurmountable amount of lives transformed. We feed people, we clothe people, we pray for people, we get people counselled, and then those who want to go into rehab, we get them into rehab. We've had people have finished now, are working for us. Yeah. Lives are totally transformed. Some of these people were living in tents. Some of these people were the people you've seen lying on the streets of Belfast, are now totally transformed by the power of Jesus Christ, living a drug-free life and enjoying life. Like one young girl I met's now married. There's another young boy getting married. It's the power of the gospel. That's what changes these people. But if you don't reach them with the gospel, how will they ever know? Do you know one of my biggest gripes with Christians, Nathan, is this? See, the people that brought me gospel tracts, they were lovely, lovely people, but not one Christian ever told me how to get saved.
Right, okay.
Not one. They were throwing tracts at me. I didn't read the tracts. But none of them took time to stand and say to me, Brian, if you ever think of getting saved, this is what you do. I when I was in that car that night, I just cried out to God for forgiveness and to come into my life and help me. It's a prayer that worked for me. No one ever told me. So when we talk to these people, the first thing we do, in a nice way, not a judgmental way, we tell them that there's hope, and the hope's in Jesus. And we present the gospel to them. And the reason we do that, people say, oh, you don't ram the gospel. They could be dead tomorrow. Yeah. And that's the honest truth. Like in 3 years there, just over 3 years now working in Chapel Lane, like we have, I don't think, well, if you had this in your church, there would be a time of mourning, but we've lost 16 people. 16 people that we work with are dead.
And how many years? 5 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Not one of them over 30. These are young people. And
is it the drugs mostly?
Drugs, yeah.
The drugs themselves?
All drugs. It's all drugs, all drug-related overdosing and drugs. I could get drugs here to your door in 10 minutes. Yeah. I could just go on the Telegram and get drugs delivered to your door. Everyone thinks drugs, it's not a problem in our community. It's a problem in every community.
It is, and I think, are you finding, and I've spoken to other guys who do the same ministry as you, but are you finding as well as they do that it's an increasing problem in Belfast?
It's blown out of proportion. It's through the roof. Yeah. It is absolutely. I'm not just saying this to frighten people. I've been involved in working with drug addicts since the day I was saved. I've always had a compassion, because that's a life I came with. Yeah. And I've believed if Jesus can set me free, he can set these people free. So I've always had that heart of compassion for them. Yeah. You know, sometimes I'd have picked people up and brought them over Christmas dinner. Martine went mad that I found on the street. But I've never seen it as bad. I have never seen, I'm not saying that to spook people out, I have honestly never seen it as bad, and it's grown by about 50% in the last year even.
In just 1 year?
Oh, it's through the roof. People now are injecting cocaine injecting
Now,
it.
are these, so it's, do you think that this is being caused by supply, or is it being caused by demand, or both?
It's both. It's both. It's people making, obviously there's a huge amount of money. There's a huge lack of police resources to deal with the drugs. They do get a measure of success, but it's a small percentage.
Now, when you say deal with the drugs, is it dealing with individuals, or is it dealing with the kingpins?
Dealing with the kingpins.
Okay.
There's very few kingpins that get arrested and put in jail. Like if I went into the city centre, I know most drug addict in the city centre knows me, and I know them. I could take you over and stop them and search them and get heroin on them.
Yeah.
And the police will do the same. Now, heroin's a banned substance, they'll be arrested for that. That's not a drug find.
Yeah.
I'm not being unkind on the police. That is not a drug find. That guy's an addict. Of course he's going to have heroin or cocaine on him because he needs it to survive. That's his survival. So there's a lot of arrests like that go on that gets the crime figures up. But to me, they're not the real crime figures.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the reality. That's not dealing with the major issues. Now, I work with the police. I respect the police. I let the police be the police. We carry on, and we try not to get involved in all that. We carry on, and we just keep reaching them with the hope of Jesus. That's what we do. I've told all the people who volunteer with me, we focus on the individuals. The police do their job, the court do their job. We're here for the individuals to tell them that Jesus Christ loves them and died for them and can save them and set them free.
So, do you think that that's a huge problem? So coming from that perspective yourself, do you think that a lot of people just feel that they're beyond redemption?
Yeah, like these people, you know, I've brought people in, and when I tell them about our programme, their eyes light up. Because they believe, like me, there was no hope, and they're going, what? When can it go? It's the first ray of hope they've ever had, and in their life, you know, and you're bringing it, and you're telling them it's a Christian program, and they get all excited. You know, it's hope. It's hope we're trying to bring. I think it's Jackie Prunger said, if you want to see revival, plant your church in the gutter. Well, that's where we are, and we're seeing revival. We're seeing these people. You're seeing these people transformed. If you go onto our church webpage, you'll hear all their testimonies. We have a webpage, teenchallengeni.com.
Yeah.
A lot of their testimonies are on the page. And then people you see on that page, they were on the streets. They were lying in the gutter. They were the ones that people walked past. And maybe even some Christians walked past. But Jesus didn't walk past them. And he redeemed them. And it's powerful, like.
Yeah. So we sort of talked about yourself and like the trouble that you were getting in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was your behaviour was a huge drain on police time, resources.
Horrible.
Right. And what happens is people are addicted. You know, they're saying, right, I need to get my fix. I'm going to rob here.
Yeah.
That'll get me my money from a fix, or pay off the debt to the paramilitary or to the drug dealer.
Yep.
Then that creates they get their fix, then they need more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
So, and the more drug addicts we have, then the more the general crime's going to. So if you're even seeing one person changed, that's a huge relief on the time. Well,
you know what's here's the truth of the matter, Nathan. So when I got this off medical hubs, I didn't get this information myself. So if we work with one person addiction in the streets of Northern Ireland and we put them into rehabilitation, on average we save the NHS, now not the police, the NHS, £100,000 a year. So if I put 10 in, or we get 10 in, we save the NHS £1 million a year. So if I have 30 in at the minute, I'm saving the NHS in Northern Ireland £3 million a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying this to brag or boast. It's the reality. I don't know any other drug program that's run by government, and we're not run by government. We're not funded by government. Don't give us a penny. That's saving the NHS £3 million a year. Yeah. That would be a good way to rob government, run it, and save money.
Yeah.
And I would love them to give us money to get a rehabilitation centre here and let us run it the way we run it, because we you know, see the people in Northern Ireland, the Christians, they're brilliant at giving. We're super at giving, and I give too. Like, I give to Africa and I give over to children in Albania, and we're good at that. But we forget about our Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. We're the only country that doesn't have a Christian rehabilitation centre in the whole of Europe. That's sad. That's really, really sad. Mm-hmm. Like, if I had about £2 million, we could go and build somewhere. But I think that the churches will have to answer to God about that. Why we have neglected this.
Yeah.
The NHS, we now have a situation now where the NHS are sending people to me. I'm not a doctor. I have doctors sending their patients to me. I'm not a doctor. A probation phoning me. Of police send them down to me. Because they now realise, whether they believe in God or not, they now realise what we're doing has a measure of success. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's no one else that they see has this measure of success. Yeah. And it's Jesus.
Yes,
it's Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus. That's right.
That's the only difference. Yeah. The only difference between us and Downpatrick Hospital or Northlands Hospital, where they bring addicts and mental health people in, the only difference is Jesus. Mm-hmm. We promote Jesus, who sets people free and transforms people. And because of that, in our 10.5-month programme, we have an 85% success rate.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about it, the people who look after our centres, they're not professional people. Some of them are, but they're ex-addicts who stayed on to work. They're not degree educated. They don't have PhDs. They're not doctors. They're not nurses. And they run a centre and get an 85% success rate. And I could take you to a centre that has doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, social workers, probation, and have an 8% success rate. Yeah. So the difference is Jesus.
Yeah. It's the only difference, isn't it?
That's what it is.
You know.
Because they're better skilled than what we are.
Yeah.
They have better knowledge than what they might not have better knowledge in drugs now, but with better skill sets, better educated.
Yeah. And that's all well and good,
but we have Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
And thank God for them.
That's right.
Some of them do a great work, but they're killing themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing lives transformed.
No.
Because they're not allowed to bring Jesus into the... And some of them are Christian. We have a lovely Christian doctor works with us, you know, and if it wasn't for, some people would never be in our centres. But the answer is Jesus, and that's... We will never shy away from that.
Yeah.
Never.
So, even from a government perspective, then, what things could government do? You know, like, and I'm always a wee bit cautious of, you know, the government doing everything, but, like, in terms of, you know, even response from police and things like that, what could they do?
Well, look, if you take facts and figures from governments, they're not reliable. Yeah. And I'll tell you why they're not reliable. We work there in Belfast city centre. Now, we work throughout Northern Ireland. We have buses going around Northern Ireland. And we work with all these drug addicts, all these people in addiction. We see all the needles. We know how much it costs for drugs. We know what way they're taking them. We know the effects they're having on them. We know how many of them are homeless. We know how they should be housed and where they should be housed and where they shouldn't be housed. We know it better than anyone else, and that's not to brag. There's other groups like the People's Kitchen and Homeless Services are the same. They know all that. Do you know how many times government have come and asked for our advice?
How many?
None.
None.
Zero.
So, what then? So they're acting blindly.
They're just drawing statistics down from.
And they're not talking to the people on the ground.
No, they're not.
And then what happens is then they go, right, we're going to put a needle place here, a needle drop here. We're going to put, you know, drug addicts here for rehabilitation, and then what happens?
Do you know? You look at the situation with Welcome Centre. What happened? The parent organisation burnt them out. But here's the thing, Nathan. You know, people in government through being naive or whatever, instead of coming down and asking, addicts have a voice. Come and ask them yourself. Like, there was a situation where the Green Party wanted to put needle exchange, you know, these little boxes where you could go in and safely take your heroin in round Belfast. They thought this was a good idea. So
what would happen if that?
Well, I can tell you exactly what will happen. This is what they should have done. I invited them to come down and they wouldn't do it.
The Green Party bringing this wouldn't talk to you?
Wouldn't come down. I asked him to come down and he wouldn't come down. I'll not name him, but he knows who he is. So I asked the DEP councillor to come down, and he came down. And I brought him round with me, because there was this whole talk in City Hall about safe zones where they could eject, where there's a doctor, a nurse on board or whatever. And we sat down in front of one guy, young guy, and I asked him a question. I said to him, that says his name was Paul, it's not Paul. Paul, if you get your heroin round at the Cathedral Quarter, are you going to walk round the North Street to inject it? And every one of them said, well, I won't use the language I used, but the bottom line was, we're taking it where we get it, because if he gets his heroin and walks 3 streets away and you're an addict and you know he's got it, you'll rob him before he gets to the blinking place. It's nonsensical. It's stupidity of the highest level and the biggest waste of money. It will not save lives. Now, we're not against needle exchange or anything like that. We'll just park our buses outside it because we know we'll get the addicts there. It saves us having to go looking for them. But when you think, like this counsellor, I asked 4 people, and you know him, and he was startled. And he says, why don't they come down and ask them for themselves? They've told you. None of them said they would go round where there's a doctor and a nurse and whatever else. Because you walk in there, everybody's watching you, and then they know you're one of these addicts.
Aye. There's a shame factor.
You're labelled.
Yeah. You're
labelled. And then you make it robbed, going to it. It's just not as practical as what they've seen it one in Glasgow or something. They've seen them all around Amsterdam, but they were all ripped out anyway because it didn't work. And they think, we're the saviours. No, let's see their lives changed. That's what saves them. Get them free from the drugs.
Yeah.
And see their lives transformed. And that's what we try and do. We're not against anyone else that's trying to help them, but there's a difference between helping and enabling.
Why do you think people take drugs?
Well, I could tell you one. There's always a reason, always. So I can tell you, people just don't start taking drugs.
No.
But one young lady I had in there just a couple of weeks ago, who's living on the streets taking drugs, very unwell at the moment. And we are filling our forms in, and one of the questions on the forms is, have you ever committed arson? Because we have to be cautious, because there are people who like to burn things, and the last thing you want an arsonist coming into one of your centres to set it on fire. So she said yes, and I was sort of startled. Yes? Well, do you mind if I ask, what did you burnt down? Yeah, I burnt my daddy's house down. I thought he was in it. And I thought, wow, you burnt your daddy's house down? What? Did your daddy do something? And she sort of went quiet and said to me, well, my daddy abused me and abused my sister. My sister killed herself, and I tried to kill him. He got 16 years in jail, and I hope he's dead. So to live with the pain and the shame, she's been filling herself with sorry, I get emotional at this. She's been filling herself with drugs to try and block out the painful, shameful, hurtful memories, while her dad's in the prison getting 3 meals a day, a good bed at night, and looked after medically and everything else. And his victim is lying in the street, and the government's doing nothing to help her. That can't be right. Mm-hmm. That is so wrong. It can't be right. And I get them stories over and over and over again. And the victims are tossed to the side, and the perpetrators are looked after.
So you would say a lot of this is really due to, in your experience, is due to people who have had wounds in their life, and they've never been fixed, never resolved.
Yes, nine times out of 10, we have some people who were ex-military, PTSD, and there's limited help for them.
Yeah.
Unless they go to their class, they're sort of dropped off the system. But addicts, somebody who's on an addiction with PTSD, times, they don't count days and times and hours. Like telling an addict you need to be at the clinic at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And then would you say some of the other things, maybe experimentation? There's a lot of people doing a lot of experimentation.
There is, yeah. There's people who go out and experiment with their friends, and they just have an addictive personality, and before they know it, they become addicted, and then gradually they start to lose it's a home wrecker, it's a family wrecker, it's a person wrecker. It just removes any human life that you have. That's not who they really are. An addict's not who the person is.
Yeah.
We attempt to get the addiction off them so the real person come out in Jesus and who God wants them to really be.
If you don't mind me asking, I have a couple of friends who do the same ministry as yourself, and I'm pretty confident I know the answer here. What do you think of the legalisation of marijuana? Is that going to solve the problem?
Never solve the problem. I would never go for legalisation of marijuana, and I'll tell you for why. I have 3 guys that I've known who have been on, this is just 3, on marijuana for 25 years, and every one of them are schizophrenic now. Yeah. Every one of them. Every single one of them. The long-term effects of marijuana is very damaging, and it's a gateway drug to everything else. Yeah. You know, legalising drugs doesn't fix the thing. Legalising drugs in Amsterdam increased the death rate. It didn't decrease it. Yeah. You know?
And that's interesting because there's a lot of well-intentioned. So I'm sure a lot of people well-intentioned thinking this is going to solve the problem, but it's not going to solve the problem.
Not going to solve the problem. So it's not.
Well, you have pointed to the problem being solved through Jesus. Well, God has granted the church, his church, great authority in the nation. Yeah, yeah. So this is just one manifestation of the problem of the nation. But what does the church need to do to see the nation transform? Because obviously we've seen individuals transform through the power of the gospel. Nations can also be changed through the power of the gospel. So what do you think the church needs to do as a pastor and as somebody who's working?
I ask myself this question. So I think every Christian, not every pastor, every Christian needs to ask themselves this question. You know, Jesus said, like one of the minimal requirements, Jesus said that whoever gives a cup of water in my name will be rewarded in heaven. Mm-hmm. So I ask every Christian this question: when's the last time you give someone a cup of water in the name of Jesus? When's? Because if you haven't done that, you've done nothing. That's a minimum requirement. We don't give addicts money. We give them food and clothes, and we just don't give money. You give them money, you're killing them. It's just they're just going to get trucks with the money, you know. So I think churches, and even my own church, we can get so caught up in what we're doing, we can miss the obvious on our doorsteps. You know, it's like, do you remember the old story where during the Nazi Holocaust, when the trains were flying past the churches in Germany, they sung louder so they couldn't hear the squeals of the people on the train? I think we're doing the same thing. I honestly do. There's broken, hurting, squealing people lying on the streets, and we're sort of closing our eyes, our ears, our mind state, and just saying, let them people look after that.
Activity. You think that's part of it? Do you think we're sort of...
Church, like the bottom line is the church is not the building, the church is the people. Where we go is a church. But if you're going, bring the church with you. If every Christian shared the gospel, I don't think it'll be too long till we've seen revival in the country. But compassion. Jesus was, he was the most compassionate Saviour you ever met in your life.
Yeah.
The only people he judged was righteous people who should have known better. But like, hugged a leper, woman caught in adultery, the one stoned to death. He's not even interested, he writes in the ground. Tax collector, who likes tax collectors? Mom, I'm going to your house for a cup of tea. The most challenging lifestyle. But how many in the church can say that we're supposed to be like Jesus or living the same lifestyle or lifestyle similar to that?
Yeah. Mission. There's a lack of mission. Well, and I think that probably leads us on to our next question in terms of revival. There's a lot of people out there praying for revival. There's a lot of churches out there praying for revival. I know it's a passion of yours.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think are the necessary things that need to be brought in? Because we don't want to do history lessons in revival. We don't want to, and those are helpful. But come back to what you were saying about Elisha.
Yeah.
We don't want to look back and say we want other 1859.
No.
Surely we want something, a new blessing, something
100%.
more that God can do. So what do you think is the need and the necessary conditions for that revival?
Well, I think you're saying there about the one in 1859. There used to be an old song, the song "We Need Another Pentecost," and a preacher got up and said, "We don't need another one. There's nothing wrong with the first one. You've just made it bad." But put legs on your prayers. That's what I was always told. Mm-hmm. So bring revival with you. Be revival. Mm-hmm. Be revival. You everywhere you go, you have within you, I have within me a message of hope for the impossible. And with God, it's not impossible. And if you got to pray for it, there's no doubt, but you got to humble yourself as well. There's got to be a humility that I can't enact revival, I can't cause revival, but I can be revival in many respects. Mm-hmm. I can choose to be like that. Because
the life of Christ is in us through the power of the Spirit. That's
contagious. That is absolutely contagious.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, I stopped watching the news after COVID because you know what they were doing? They were speaking death into my family and death into my sitting room and here, and I thought, what?
Yes.
I'm not having that. Media don't. When did the media come on and say, "We got good news today. Where do you hear this story? This is great." Not a chance. So I don't watch the news. I don't let my family see the news because I've nothing good to tell me.
No.
I read the Bible. I tell people about Jesus, the goodness of God, the mercy of God, the grace of God, the love of God. You don't have to live this way. You can be set free. You can be born again. You can be filled with the Spirit. You can live for Jesus. You can have life and you can purpose. You can have an eternity of security. That's good news. That's, my goodness. Who wouldn't want that? They're blinded by the God of this world. We can't convert people. All we do is speak the hope and pray that the Holy Spirit will convict, convince and convert, that He'll open their eyes and remove the scales, which happened for me and no doubt happened for you. But I used to, when we first get saved, the amount of evangelism that took place was mind-blowing. Door-to-door work, reaching people, singing, around nursing homes, everything. It's all scaled away back,
Yeah, so you would say that in your experience, the actual evangelism has scaled back?
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? One of the most admiring things I see with evangelism is with Crown Jesus. I love them because I'm not pumping them up here. They just don't talk it to do it. There's too much talking. It's time to do. We moved in there, the Chapel Inn, just over 3 years ago. We didn't plan. Like if I would love to have been able to say to you and I, Nathan, we prayed 3 years about this and we fasted and we went in and God fulfilled the plan. But I think this is the way God works in revival. So we go into Chapel Inn and it just blows off the scale. We didn't do a thing. We just shared the gospel. I went down the other night after I finished to speak. There'll be over 100 people the other night again on a Thursday night church service, praising the Lord from all different backgrounds. I look around and I think, is there any churches in Northern Ireland like this church? There's ex-UVF, ex-UDA, ex-IRA, ex-Protestant, ex-Catholic. There's Travellers, there's ex-addicts, there's Presbyterians, Church Area. Is there any other church where that's happening, where that's taking place? We didn't plan that. That's a move of God. That's what God will do. But you need to facilitate it. You need to be ready for it. If we hadn't have moved into that area and opened the doors, it wouldn't have happened. No. So God wants us to, like I said to you before I came in here, stop throwing our net out to the left-hand side of the boat, throw it out to the right, do something different. And that God blesses and that God enlarges, because God's able to do anything, but He always, for whatever reason, uses people to get it done. And if people don't make themselves available, then we're I don't think God's responsible for revival at this moment in time. I think we're responsible for it not happening at this moment in time.
So in the sense that God is sovereign, He can do what He wants.
Yeah.
But the thing is, He also expects obedience. And guess what? If there's no obedience, the consequences of obedience, which blessing, will not follow.
Well, you can sacrifice all you want, but the obey is better than sacrifice. That's what the Bible says, and obedience. I'm not a grandeur person. I'm not better than anyone else. I'm just stepping into what I think and believe God wants me to do. I'm faced with death. I'm faced with pain. I'm faced with hurt. I'm in a ministry that I never thought, why would God bring me here? I'm doing travellers' weddings. What am I to do travellers' weddings for? I'm ministering to the travelling community. I didn't ask for that, but it's happening. They're being saved. The addicts are being saved. Their families are being saved. Their families are going to our church. Some are coming back volunteering for me. I don't read any book on theology where there's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, how to do that.
Yes.
No, there's not.
It just happens, doesn't it?
It happens.
Yeah.
But you make yourself available for it to happen, if that makes sense.
See, do you know what I think the thing is, Brian? There's the two things that'll grow a church. Right? What are those two things that'll grow a church? One is prayer meeting, second evangelism. And it's amazing how many churches are closing down their prayer meetings. Yeah. It's amazing how many are doing all these sorts of great initiatives, don't get me wrong, but the evangelism and the prayer meeting are the two things that are closed down. And guess what? Then they're shocked that the church is closing.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked at it closing if that's the case. Like the prayer meeting's the least attended meeting in any churches that I go to.
Yeah.
And evangelism is the absolute minimum, an absolute crazy minimum. Now I know that there's no way that everyone can do the type of evangelism we do in Teen Challenge. Yeah. We have people like the South Belfast Presbytery. If it wasn't for them, what is taking place down there wouldn't be happening. Mm. But they're not actively down there involved in it. But if they're still involved in it, because they give the building. Yeah. So everybody has a part to play. Yeah. Do you know, the church started off in Acts of the Apostle. They were of one mind and one purpose. Yeah. And what I see down there is one mind, one purpose. So we've got Presbyterian, Methodist, Church of Ireland and Elim all working together. Yeah. And God is moving, and there's no disagreements, there's no arguments, we're all doing what we're called to do, and we all fit in the building. And when you get that going, like on Wednesday we had 88 people in that hall, feeding them, praying with them. We've hairdressers come in, Jez barber cutting their hair. We have a counsellor, I have a dentist now going to come down and do their teeth. The inclusion hub bring their ambulance down to treat them outside our centre on Wednesday. It's like one of those Christian missionary hospitals you see in the Middle East, happening in the middle of Belfast. But people are being saved and changed and transformed. Sometimes there's no order to it, there's no structure to it, but you're just finding yourself I'm letting God to be God because I'm not God and I can't be God. So just let God be God, but make yourself available for Him to work through you.
And there's people out there don't feel gifted or equipped in things like evangelism, right? Although, like, it's actually not as hard as people think, but but then there's people out there, even for instance, have giftings like they can cut hair. I can't cut hair. I tried during COVID and it was my own. That didn't look
everybody
too good.
tried it. I shaved mine.
But things like that. It's creative ways that you can serve the Lord. But also, there's people out there who don't have any time, and they can fund what the Lord is wanting them to do in terms of evangelism, can't they?
Yeah, and we have see. Do you know what I love about down there? If it wasn't for what people donated, it wouldn't be possible. So we have a guy who provides us burgers and sausages. You know him. I'll not mention him. He doesn't want me to mention him. He's doing it behind the scenes. We have a spar that donates food. We have another group that donates bread and milk. The People's Kitchen give us stuff down as well. And then there's people that donate financially through our website to keep it running, to keep it going. And the amount of people involved in it, I don't think you could number. There's a stack of people involved in that. But that pleases me. That gives me hope, It's not you're building Nathan's kingdom and I'm building Brian's kingdom. We're building God's kingdom. And we're just in a luxurious position where he's chosen us to be involved in this.
Well, that brings us on to the thing, the final question. It's about God's kingdom and looking ahead. What are your hopes and prayers for Northern Ireland? How do we bring God's kingdom here? And what do you think God is calling us to in these days?
Well, I honestly think, righteousness exalts a nation, sin brings a reproach. I think we need to see righteousness in government. Mm-hmm. But if righteousness doesn't proceed in government, God will flip the government. There's no doubt about it. So sometimes it has to start from the ground up. So we can show people above us, this works, this is how it works, Christ is real. Lives are changed, transformed. We everywhere we go, the kingdom goes with us. I believe that. So we have the ability to do that. We have the ability to shape Northern Ireland. The church has that ability to shape Northern Ireland. Yeah. But they need to get off their stepping stone of judgmentalism. And when I first get saved, when I left that minister Sam Conkey, I read John 3:17. For Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world, but the world through him might be saved. The world's already condemned. I'm not going out to condemn anybody. Mm-hmm. I'm going out there to speak Jesus, to see them released from condemnation that they're currently under. So if the church can readapt their whole outlook of how they're doing things and the way they're doing things and start to show a little bit more love and mercy and grace and compassion, no one refuses love. No one refuses grace. No one refuses mercy. No one refuses passion. They just don't.
Well, drill down what you mean by that. Just, in terms of like the condemnation approach.
Well, the condemnation approach is that you think you're better than everyone else. That's what I mean by that. That you're and we're not better than everyone else.
Yeah.
We're held as serving sinners saved by grace as well. So we must never forget that method when we're reaching people.
Yeah, sure.
That we're all the same.
Yeah, and so we have that, and then we approach them the language of love, which is
100%. 100%.
Well, here I also realise as well that you're needing to go, so we'll not go too far down that road. But look, Brian, thank you so much for coming.
Nathan, thank you.
And look, the Lord bless you in your ministry. I wish you all the very best for tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Look, we never know, might have you on again. But the Lord bless you. I'll see you soon.
God bless you. Thank you very much. Bless you, brother. Bless you.